Now, today on AM Exclusive, we engage Dr. Kojo Esim Mensah Abrampa. It's quite a mouthful. He's Director General, National Development Planning Commission. We're going to be engaging him on Ghana's developmental agenda and how far we have come with our development planning. Doc, good morning.
Good morning.
And I must say, our condolences to you as well. I saw Doc in black, and you know, in Ghana, though I can don black for just whatever reason, but I asked him and he shared with me that, you know, you've lost your mother.
Dear mother.
Our condolences.
Thank you.
Life, anyway. And, we hope that God will strengthen you.
Definitely.
And the family.
Definitely.
Okay, so here we are. It's another opportunity to share. I think this is what, my fourth or fifth engagement with
fifth,
you.
I think so.
Right. Before we get into the developmental issues, though, I just want to find out, contemplating Ghana today, people are talking about DUMSO, people are talking about the KPMG report, people are talking about cocoa, people are talking about so many things. But for you, if you had to talk about one topical matter, what would it be?
I think we need to look at the cocoa very well. Very, very well, yes.
Smuggling.
Smuggling, yeah. This is something which comes on and off, depending on the regime and depending on the pricing. And then also depending on what we are doing at our borders. And I think the combination of that is very, very necessary, given the fact that we're going through a situation where chocolate is at the highest, price ever. I just came from outside and I saw what I bought over there compared to last year, and I realized that it's already, if not 200% difference in terms of price. So it tells us that it's coming up. But, to break the gap, cocoa, it takes about... But
cocoa prices have started to fall.
Yes, it started to fall because
it's a free fall.
Exactly. But the issue had to do with the bridging the gap in terms of what we can do. In terms of how we can manage that, we need to look at the smuggling. It's very, very important. I spent a lot of my life in some of the border areas in Western region, and I know that it's a problem there. But now that we've come strongly into what I call the Cocoa Union with Côte d'Ivoire, it helps. Because as much as possible, they will also like to facilitate and together control the world market. So we need to work together. This has started, and strongly this needs to be progressed. I also think that as we've started revamping our cocoa farms, we need to do that. Because planting, it will take 3 to 4 years to make a difference.
Right.
So within the next 3 or 4 years, we have something to manage and something to work on. And I know very well a lot of efforts being done by Cocoa Board. But unfortunately, a disease which we were struggling with in the 60s is back. And that is something that we need to fight on and work on. Ideally, people are also attributing that to the whole issue of climate change. So it's not just cocoa tree, it's not just the soil, but it's our own environment which is also contributing to that. Having longer rainy seasons and very intense dry season, and it's affecting the whole ecology of the growth of the cocoa. Yeah.
Well, we pray for better times. But let's get into the main bit about Ghana's developmental agenda.
Yeah.
Especially now as we're in the political season, you hear this person say this, that person say that. And sometimes you ask yourself, how does that even feed into the NDPC and its work? And unfortunately, your outfit has also been politicized over time. A bit. Because you go back to Professor Kwesi Botry, blessed memory. You come to Professor Stephen Nade. You come to so many others. And I've had interactions with these people, and they'll tell you, yes, we do our work as well as we can, but there's also the political element. Sometimes you even want to do something, and this administration says, oh no, let's do it that way because we made this promise. But where do we stand on the developmental front as far as the NDPC is concerned?
Yes, if you look at the setting up of NDPC, and as a planner, what I say is that the National Development Planning Commission manages the vision of the country, which is very different from managing projects and programs, which can be ascribed to a government. But the vision of the country is our function. How we manage this vision is very, very important. For many years, we've concentrated on plan preparation. Preparing a plan is only one activity of the whole planning process, and what generally we call the public financial management system. You see, but implementing the plan is crucial. And this is something we have either looked at it or we've only touched it even way back since 1957. And if you look at why all these plans failed, it's basically because of the management. And so for myself,
maybe mismanagement.
Exactly. For myself and my commission, it's one of the things we looked at. I mean, and I realized that it wasn't even our commission. It was started even by the Contributory Commission. How we can work to link up, and this is crucial, the plan to the budget. This is what for a very long time we have failed. So we come up with beautiful plans that have very little influence on our own resource management or the budget. So we've worked on this assiduously, and we realize that now there's a very strong linkage we've managed to establish between our plans and our budget. Hitherto, you have a plan, which is the vision of the country, which can be a plan, well done, neatly done, and it has no influence, because the influence over the budget very often is that power is basically given to the government to express.
Right.
It's given to government because we have not been able to establish a system which automatically links this up.
But are you saying after all this time, we still don't have such a system that can function like a well-oiled cog in a wheel so that we get there? What is happening?
Surprisingly, the answer is no. We're
still not there.
It's just the last 2-3 years that we've been, although we've started working on it as NDPC for a very long time, the last 3 years is taking shape in the sense that now the PFM, the public financial management process, has now been linked up. What I would say that from plan to the budget to procurement, to spending, that's the Accountant General Department, to Parliament for approval, and then to implementation institutions at the ministries, and then back to monitoring and evaluation. This has been done, but even now it is done manually. In many cases, in this era of technology, I saw you advertising and talking about technology minutes ago. In many countries, this is automated, and this is what we've been able to work on. In fact, by the end of the year, this process will be automated, implying that once you have the plan approved by Parliament, if you have a budget being approved, if the budget doesn't link up to the plan, you cannot press a dot to approve. Any budget activity must have a reversal relationship with the plan that you have also identified, an activity in the plan. And then it can go on to spending. If you're a spending officer and you change any activity for which you are approving, it will not be approved. You will not have money to spend because the budget will not have it and the plan will not have it. And this is automated. Fortunately, we managed to have a very good activity around that, let me say that, supported by the Ghana government and with support from the World Bank, for which all those actors involved in managing this process of linking the plan to the budget have now been established in the program. So you have over there GRA, which brings the money. You have over there the Accountant General Department, the Audit Service, the Parliament itself, Public Service Commission, NDPC, Ministry of Finance, all of us sitting at the table and then linking up this process. And that is what we've been working on, in fact, since the last 2 years, but manifesting in this year, we have ourselves targets. I have one in June. By that time, I should have a report ready for Parliament on the state of our development.
What is the state of our development today?
The state of our development, let me say that we have defined targets which we're working towards.
Right.
And these targets are numerous. Right. But there are, within each year, we have certain areas that we focus on. We've had big problems in the past, which had to do with the growth rate that we set for ourselves in the last 3 years. In terms of our medium term, we've not been able to hit that because we are expecting a minimum average of 5%. We've not been able to hit that. So
and I see you with the logo of the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. Even there, we're also struggling.
Well, let me say that largely with the SDG, it's not only us. It's something which is global. Almost all of us, in the last meeting in New York, we all accepted that if you go by the pace, we will not be able to attain.
But we are talking about Ghana and some of what we
so
target,
Ghana,
even in terms of access to water and economic.
Let me put it this way: we've identified 6 areas, basically 5, for which we have to work on and attain. Water is one of them. We are almost there. Where we are suffering has to do with our water quality, which is another thing to look at. But in terms of access to water, we have gone way above 85% of Ghanaians who have access to water. Quality is being challenged. We accept that. We also have a lot of improvement in terms of access to sanitation. With respect to that, we've had a good result in terms of nutrition. Yes, nutrition and access to poverty is reducing, though not as fast as we want. There are other areas which we have done very well, areas with innovation, and we all accept the fact that we've improved heavily on communication and others. So these are some of them. There are others where we have huge challenges. If it comes to the issue which has to do with energy access, for instance, 7. In terms of developing alternative energy, we're still around 1%, which is not as accepted, given the fact that we would like to hit by 2030, 20% of our energy source should come from alternative energy sources. It means that we have a lot to do in the next 7 years.
If you look at the gap, it tells you, and these are some of the targets that sometimes I ask myself, okay, we came up with this, it's ambitious and all of that, but how are we getting there? I've seen the plans of other countries, South Korea, even China. And sometimes you ask yourself, how do we plan here? Because you look at the plan versus the execution, and you tell yourself that even within an 8-year term of a specific administration, what they have done is nowhere near what they should have done, so that any other government that comes, or even if they were continuing, let's say you say that in 10 years, maybe you should achieve 100% of something, right? And by God's grace, you get an 8-year term, which means in the next 2 years, you should have hit 100. But after 8 years, you are at 15. You see, that means it means that by 8 years, you should be at 80, but you are at 15. And that has been the story all through.
You see, and that's what I said. The fundamental thing is that our plans are not linked to our resources. That is the problem, fundamental. There is no way you can implement a plan.
You have planners.
You have planners.
The NDPC has
they do the
technical people.
Exactly.
Government has technical people. Explain to me how it is not possible to ensure that our plans are commensurable with
in the past. Let me say that. Because once you do the plan, you prioritize each year. You have a medium-term framework, which is the fiscal framework, which is prepared by Minister of Finance. And then you have an annual priority, which is established in the plan. And this is what goes to implementation. There must be resources, a budget, which responds to these prioritized areas. Then you are implementing the plan. But if you have resources, which is responding to areas which are not in the priority, which has been the case in the past several times, all these past, then you have a plan which is excellent, but the budget is not responding to the plan. And this is where we have struggled.
Whom are we to blame? The politicians? Because it's not what you're telling me is you put forward a plan. We need 100 million to do X, Y, and Z. The budget comes and only 20 million is available to you. And maybe there was even external funding or something, though usually they are strict. But you find out that people end up, it's like with the GET fund. Capping the GET fund and all of that. So all of us make purchases, we are taxed, GET fund levy. But it doesn't go where it should go. Government is dipping its hands into it and taking. Is that not the problem?
The problem is not with government, because then you go back and blame all the way to 1957. It's the system we have created as a nation.
Which is
what? A system where you have what we call 12 key actors within the public service, public financial management system. And these actors must relate. Those working in plan must relate to those working on the budget. Those working on the budget must relate to those spending, and that is those working on the budget must relate to those mobilizing the revenue, GRA. Those mobilizing the revenue must relate to the accountant general, who looks at what is there and what can be spent. And then on to procurement. What they are approving in terms of capital, is it in the plan? Is it related to resources that is available? And then you go to implementation. The civil servant, what are they doing in terms of deciding at the various ministries? It's what they are doing in consonance with the very plans they have presented. And have they prioritized to receive these resources? Are these resources available? And then you go to Parliament that approves the plan and the budget. If Parliament is approving the budget, is that budget responding to a plan which has been presented? So this is the system. And then you go to those who look at the auditing. The auditor finds out. It's what you presented in the budget. Is that in the plan? Is that what you have budgeted for? And is that what you've spent on? So this is a system which has to work.
And the system, and what you're saying is the system is not working.
The system has never worked.
The system has never worked.
Has never worked. This thorough system of getting this thing done has not worked.
Is it too long? Is it too bureaucratic? Is there too much red tape? Is that what you're saying?
And that is what we have been able to work on. That's I said, the last 2 years, we've devoted our time, Ministry of NDPC, Ministry of Finance, and all these institutions. And we have worked on it assiduously, such that we are just at the last bit, which we have to do by June, by September for the next budget cycle, because this will be automated. Automated means that you have already in the budget system where you have the paying system is already linked to the budget. So you can only pay when it's linked to the budget. But the budget is not linked to the very plan which has been approved by the Parliament. And the plan takes into consideration all these prioritized things which will give us good results at the end of the day. So this is what we are doing. Once this is linked, once payment is done, the payment is being done in response to what we decided as a country, approved by our Parliament to do within the year, within the plan.
In response to something specific.
Specific.
Okay. So tell me, does that mean that as of now...
Let me give one example, which means that if this money is supposed to go to support education, you cannot take it to...
Divert it.
Exactly.
All right. So this means, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you are handicapped.
Well, let me say that once the system is done, and the system...
I'm talking of currently. You're still handicapped.
No, currently it's difficult. It's been difficult in the past, more difficult, but now it's easing. Because now I'm very comfortable from last year what happened, and this year what is happening. And I'm very comfortable. Very, very comfortable.
Just tell me, I will go to your, and this is a document you remember. I've had it for about a year or two.
Exactly.
From our initial conversation. Yeah. I like this one because it's the PDF and it's easier to go through. Ghana at 100.
Exactly.
Right? That will be 2057.
Exactly.
But before we get there, currently, what are the plans, medium term, long term, that we have? National development plans. Yeah. What are some of the plans that we have, before I even get into that?
It's a whole process, and it's very important to be able to get that. We have a long-term plan. We have the coordinated program, which is by constitution. Then we have the medium-term framework. You have the medium-term plan, and these are the plans, the 4 things which ought to go. And then you go to the ministries and the districts. So this is the logic. And then you have corresponding budgets at the national and the district level. This is what we have. And all these documents are public on our website, and then also in public for everybody to read. And that is it.
What are the, yes, you said long term and all of that. What are the timelines?
Let me give, the long-term plan looks at the perspective all the way to 2057. At the time will be 100 years. Right. What do we want to create for ourselves as a country? Then you have the coordinated program, which is a requirement of Parliament, which is an 8-year program. 8-year program. Then you go to the 4-year, it's mandatory. Okay, the 8-year program, 4-year program, and then you go to annual priorities, which is done annually, which goes into the budget. This is the system. If this is followed, definitely the logic of planning, as I indicated, will be implemented, and we should be able to hit a lot of the targets, notwithstanding some of these shocks will come on our way. That's it.
When you look at the article establishing, and talking about the commission, Article 87(1) and 2B of the 1992 Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, it says, the commission shall advise the president on development planning policy and strategy, and shall, at the request of the president, make proposals for the development of multi-year rolling plans, taking into consideration the resource potential. You mentioned resource. Resource potential and comparative advantage of the different districts of Ghana. So if you go to Shama district, they have their own comparative advantage. You want to tap into that. I know they have forestry, some timber. They also have wildlife. So you want to know how to position them and bring the best out of them. But what is the justification for this or such long-term planning? You know why I asked that? Some have looked at long-term plans. Remember Osafo Mafo and the infamous statement about a 20-year or 40-year development plan. Other countries they even have 50-year plus development plans. What is the justification?
You see, our data management as a country has improved drastically in the last 5 years, to be frank. All of us have been students, we'll be collected data, but it's drastically. 5 years ago, where data paucity, what I call poverty was such a thrived thing being used as an excuse. Currently, that's not the case. So what we have done is that the long term is basically establishing a vision. Two things. Every country that has been able to break through in the last 20 years, from lower income to high income, there's something about that. What is about that? Branding, taking advantage of what they call the comparative advantage of the country, the branding, the comparative advantage, and being known for something. This becomes a means by which we can project and pull along all the other sectors. Key. So the long-term vision is able to prioritize and identify what we call the key trigger to be able to push along. In Ghana, given our comparative advantage, and the trigger, it is so obvious for us because this is a country where we've been struggling in terms of industrialization and specifically on manufacturing and processing. But we are endowed with a lot of resources. We are number 7 in the world in terms of gold production, first in Africa. We are number 2 in terms of bauxite in Africa. We are ranked among the first 10.
That is also, the gold bit is also part of it because South Africa's gold, production dwindled drastically. They are producing less than 50% of what. But the point is that. So let me finish. What do these resources mean?
Exactly. So what we need to do, and that's how the long-term vision is. How do we process these resources? Because once you export in the raw form, you're basically getting about 20% of what you're supposed to get. How do we process that? So this is what the plan looks at. How do we be able to go through a process of refining our gold, bringing it to the finality and being able to say, instead of sending it to, Emirates and China and India and other places where the bulk of it will go and then Europe.
My problem with that point, and I'll let you elaborate, but I always want us to do critical analysis. For as long as I remember, we've been talking about refining our own gold. In this administration, we've spoken about a time without number. I think we started something.
Exactly.
What happened to that? I mean, sometimes our leaders make us feel, I call them misleaders. They make us feel we simply couldn't do anything right. You have your cocoa here. How much of it?
It's processed.
What is the chocolate capital of the world? Belgium. Brussels. Do they produce cocoa?
No.
You are the second largest in the world. You sit and wait. Gold, ornaments. If you add value to it, you can sell for 4 to 10 times as much. But no, you will go and refine somewhere. It will come back to you as a finished product. You buy it at. What is wrong with us?
You see, let me come up with this, and this is very critical. If you go to our plans, all these things that we are talking about is well established, including processes, including strategies. We have a whole Ghana National Industrialization Plan, which is a detailed one. We have another one, infrastructure, another one, human capital. But the point here is that, you see, the way we have organized ourselves is such that we always give credence to immediate things. But real development means that you need to give credence to where you want to go as much as what you are doing today. Very, very important. And that's what I've said. In many of these cases, we budget. And that's how we spend our money. And the budget within a short-term perspective. But if you budget within the long-term perspective, then you go back to your plan. What did we say we want to do? We wanted to build a refinery. How do we do it? What is the process? Do we need to register somewhere? If we do it, how do we bring up? So these are some of the questions which are answered in the plan, but it's never answered in the budget. So if you manage a country on the basis of your money that you want, expenditure, revenue, definitely some of these medium-term range of decisions will be lacking. And it's the same thing with our cocoa. People are investing in cocoa processing while they don't have cocoa. And their aim is to depend on Ghana's cocoa. So you're basically competing with them. How do you draw in and start also processing your cocoa here? You're competing with the person who is buying. So how do we bring it here? And it all depends on our conditions and terms and some of these, what I call the trade pacts and all that.
Right.
So you can't sign a trade pact in vain. You sign it thinking about how you're also going to process you.
But right before we get into some of what we have ahead of 2057, where we are though, have you not lost the battle? Because here's what I mean. You've been at post for how many years now?
Pardon me?
How many years have you been at post now
4.
at the NDPC?
4 years.
4 years.
Yes.
We're in an electoral cycle.
Yes.
And unfortunately,
Yes.
we know how it goes when it comes to power changes.
Yes.
Even this administration, if it changed leadership and the MPP were retained, maybe you wouldn't be retained. It's a possibility.
Well, I'm a public servant.
I mean,
I'm a public servant.
These appointments happen. You could be sent elsewhere.
No, I'm a public servant. There had been a time where we had an NDPC director general for 10 years.
That is true.
One person.
That is true.
Yes.
But there's also the likelihood that you could be reassigned, right?
Well, definitely, I'm a public servant.
Good.
So
my point is,
that's,
that is part of the problem.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that continuity serves a purpose. I've spoken to other people, Professor Day and others, who felt if this had been done, and sometimes right when you are on the cusp of achieving something, and someone else comes through. So my question then is, should that happen? What happens to all these plans and
it's
execution?
It's good, but if you leadership, if you personalize it, then you have a challenge. But if you have a whole team going with you, it's a system that you are creating. It's a process. You might be off, but somebody comes and it continues.
My problem is the person leaves and it doesn't continue. That's the problem.
Well, largely, I would say that largely at NDPC, there'll be more continuity than breaks as an institution, yes.
All right. Let me get into Ghana at 100. I always find it interesting when I go here and I've read this document a number of times.
Several times.
But today I'm going to do something. I'm going to go through all the projections, that is 18 of them.
Yeah.
Right? For us to take a look at them
Yeah.
and see realistically
Yeah.
where we are and where we could possibly be
Yeah.
come 2050.
Yeah, 7.
That's another, 26 years away?
Exactly.
26 years.
Yes.
Okay. So it says, by 2057, it is envisioned that Ghana will be a high-income country with the following minimum basic characteristics. 1, self-confident citizens with high standards of patriotism anchored on discipline, good work ethic, who put the welfare of country above self-interest. Today, if I look at our misleaders and I look at us, I don't think we are close to that. Then 2, a nominal GDP of approximately, I'll do the first 3 and let you come in.
Yeah.
A nominal GDP of approximately $3.4 trillion and per capita GDP of not less than $50,000 equivalent. So on the individual level, earnings and all that. Let me also just let you know, nominal GDP is not adjusted for things like inflation or deflation, price changes. So that's the whole thing, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And 3, a resilient, service-oriented, industrialized, and globally competitive economy. Again, I look at this third one, resilient. Service, resilience where? Industry is not in our hands.
Yes.
The levers of industry are not in our hands. Not in tech, not in telcos, not in even agri, on so many facets. Service-oriented, just try service from many institutions in this country. You'll get the answer to your question. Industrialized and globally competitive economy. Right now, we are not. These 3 points, what would be your reactions and where we are, how we get there in 2057?
Let me say that a lot of these were based upon assumptions which were made
That's how you plan
between 2015 and 2018. And therefore, you monitor and change along. You realize that we've started reviewing the long-term plan. Yes, and some of the indicators. So we made an assumption at the time of the growth that if we're able to grow at an average of 7% in 5 years, and then move to 6% in the next continuous years, and then glide at 5% before we hit 2057, we should be able to attain that. We realize that from 2020, this has been, shut down. Basically, it did not work.
So do you have revised figures? For example, for the nominal GDP of 3.4 trillion, do you have revised figures?
Yes, we have revised figures.
What's the revised figure?
Let me put it here. In terms of the per capita, it's better to pick that.
Yeah, so but I want the nominal as well when you're...
No, we have to do the recalculation. I don't have it here ready, but I have all the per capita, because if you grow at 4% by 2027 on an average, and then also 2037, 6%, and up to 2047, 7%, and then 7% by 2057, we should be able to hit a per capita growth rate of 8,500. 8,500, yes. We've taken into consideration all the anomalies in the past and then recalculated that. We currently...
But wait, that's a far cry from the 50,000.
Exactly.
So we've revised from $50,000
to 8,000. Yes, that is it.
500.
I must say, at the 50,000 was very, very much overambitious, because we realized that many of these countries, once they hit 10,000 per capita, it's enough to project you into a developed country. And then you begin to have also a growth rate basically around 4%. It's only Japan and South Korea that have been able to pursue and move on even after that. So this is an international thing which we know. So, but 8.5% would definitely put us, 8,500 will put us in a very comfortable, standard of living.
By 2057?
Yeah, by 2057, if you are there. And definitely given where we are in terms of the adjusted growth rates, which are reasonable, because the highest expected is about 7%.
Let me ask you though, these $8,500, are they adjusted for inflation, deflation? You couldn't possibly project, but did you have any permutations to likely project what?
Exactly, it's a model. So we also have adjusted inflations done. Okay. We've adjusted that. So we also have, for instance, a projected inflation rate. By that time, inflation rate the highest we expect by 2057 will be 9%, single. But it's also we have graduated it over a 4-year pattern for us to be able to measure after every 4 years. You have all this. So that is critical. We have these results, we have a lot of these plans, but to bring it to the public and to us to relate, we have broken them down into 4-year graduations of all these parameters so that we can assess our government over the period. Like what you have, we're putting it in table.
Okay, so let's look at it this way. If you divide 8,500 by 12, let's do a division.
Exactly.
You get 708.33.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at 708.33, now if you look at where we are currently, someone would also argue that if in 2057, looking at other countries also advancing in per capita GDP and all of that, that could actually mean poverty.
Not at all.
In 26
not at all.
If you want to consider yes, you could look at PPP, purchasing power parity.
Exactly.
But if you look at inflationary trends now and the cost of living, juxtaposed with that's why some people would want to, because they feel even if I go here and I earn $200 extra, I don't know.
We have a scenario, and that is how you look at it. Where you look at the per capita income and what it could give you in terms of parity So you have a number of countries that you compare and the trend of it. If you look at the changes in terms of the dollar element, in terms of inflation, it hasn't gone up so much. Right. It comes back. It goes up and it comes back. Now I'm almost at the highest point. But we look at the scenario, we know that it will definitely come back.
So that's why you're pegging to the dollar.
Exactly. That's why we peg it to the dollar, in fact.
Now let's look at another set of, and I may not go through all 18 of them, but I'll try.
It's interesting.
Number 4, a business and financial hub in the West African sub-region. Number 5, modernized agriculture for sufficient food to ensure food security and raw materials for agro-based industries and exports. 6, minimal income disparities between the very rich and the very poor. I feel these 2 areas are places we failed. Modernized agriculture for sufficient food to ensure food security and raw materials for agro-based industries and exports. Farmers are lamenting badly. Cost of doing business, cost of diesel, equipment, no support, fertilizers, it's just the minimal income disparities. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer.
Let me take the first one. In terms of agriculture and in terms of food security, we are number 1 in West Africa.
You know, we like to,
and so
yes, I get these factors, but
we have never been number
one. We like to play this game of we are number 1 among compared to what?
No, we have never been at the top, which means there's a progression. And if you look at the figures, in terms of food security, all of them shows improvement. All of them for the last consistently 8 years, they've been improvement. We experienced a dent in 2020, 2021, but it's come back. And the food security situation, nutrition situation is what we have chalked very high marks in terms of all the SDGs and our national indicators. So which is good. The next thing
you also realize it's also partly on the back of the low performances of those others in the sub-region.
Yes, but we also compare even to the highest, and we have moved up in terms of food security and nutrition. We are one of the best in Africa. As for that one, is in Africa, not only when it comes to nutrition, because we have pushed to the level that even countries like South Africa, Morocco, and Kenya we can still compare to that. And if you move out, the key thing is the challenge is the processing, which I agree. The agro-processing is our biggest bane now. Biggest in the sense that for a very long time, we have looked at supply, supporting agriculture through the supply vein, provide fertilizer, provide seedlings, provide cutlasses. But we have never looked at it from the demand side. So if you look at the current trend of the plan, we are looking at it in terms of demand. Demand in terms of which market is there, how do we store it, and where are we selling it. Once you do that, you always create a source for the farmer. The farmer determines what to grow and determines how much fertilizer I need and determines what kind of seedlings that I need, because farmers then makes the decision.
And I'll just use this example. The other day I was in Esitrare with, and I can mention their name, Golden Exotics Limited.
Yes.
One of the largest, producers of bananas and also pineapples, right? It's huge. I mean, their plantation is like traveling from the Independence Square
to
the University of Ghana.
Yes.
Okay? That is where we have to go. We have systems in place, and all of this is going out for export. You know something they told me? They told me that they had a market, just on the back of what you're saying, ready from now till 2 years from now.
It's already gone.
All they have to do is produce and ship.
Exactly. So
but this is a foreign entity, French, British. Why can't we apply that in our agriculture?
That is exactly what we're doing now. The demand-driven process. Because we have been producing in many areas where there's no market, but there's a market, gaping ones waiting for us. And that is where we're working towards. And that is what this plan is pushing for. The demand focus. We already have it there. Right way back in 2018, it was written. In fact, 2018 it was launched, but the writing was from 2015 to 2018. So it means that we identified that issue of demand-driven. Create demand, create storage for farmers. Other than that, farmers
don't even have a proper silo system. Nkrumah with his foresight started it. Where is our silo system? So lots of farmers will have their perishables going bad. Within a short period, they will be forced to sell them dead cheap. And then they look at, is there incentive for me to continue? No,
you see,
they stop.
We've been able to break through with those ones which can easily store. The challenge now in the country is the most difficult ones. The tomatoes, the yam, the plantain, and the others. How do we also get them processed and stored? So these are some of the things we need to look at, because the farmer responds to the market. If the farmer grows this year and there's a glut, definitely next year they will not touch the cattle. They'll produce for themselves and their family. This is how they respond to it. How do we bring it to that level and break through? It is providing the storage, the marketing, and the others. We have had it for maize now. We've been able to break through for soya bean. We're doing very well with rice, but the challenge has to do with still the roots and the
tubers and some of those. And you see, because you mentioned yam, something comes to mind. I asked this question. I can almost bet that maybe we are not there. You know, about 2-3 years ago, Ghana was, I didn't even know until I read some reports. Ghana was the world's largest exporter of yam. Are we still number one?
We're still there.
Are we still number one?
We are still there.
Number one?
We are still number one. Nobody has beaten us, because the gap between us and Nigeria was just big. And
you know, I was asking myself, what are we going to do with that core positioning? You get to be number one exporter of yam, and there are so many things you can do. I wonder what we are doing, though.
You see, and just as I said, these things are linked, and we need to look at it. We are exporting. But do you know the biggest influencer in terms of food inflation, one of the biggest influences is yam, which means that if yam prices go up locally, it pushes our inflation up. And this is by research. And the Ghana Statistical Service has published it. And therefore, yam is a product that yam and fish we really need to manage in order to control our inflation, because they push so many factors. So we take all these things in consideration. How much of it that we export and how much of it that we retain in the local market. Very, very important.
So there's information to corroborate what you're saying. Ghana has made significant gains in the area of yam export in recent years, overtaking Jamaica to become the world's biggest exporter of yam. The country's export value of yam has been on the rise since 2018, from $38.5 million to $48.2 million in 2021. And this is a report from, I think, 2022, 2023. I wish I could get very, very, very current.
No, the current thing stays the same. The most important is because we have now worked on the Eastern Corridor and also the roads in the OT region, it's facilitating the production. Because now it's easier for them to cut to the market, and it's facilitating that.
I'm going to cut to the chase and, pinpoint specific areas and take your thoughts on them so we can. We have a few minutes to go. Minimal income disparities. You've still not spoken about.
Yes, that one is a big challenge, I must say, because the inequality in terms of income is a problem. So you realize that poverty is reducing, but the gap between the rich and the poor is becoming wider. And this is where there are definite activities to bridge that. One of them has to do with the access to education and all that. And then the other one also has to do with the gap between private sector payments and the public sector. This is very big. So these are specific things we are working on. Another one which also brings up the disparity also has to do with location. You have people who have access to everything to be able to engage in production and move on. And we have areas where there's virtually nothing. So we strengthen the district assemblies to be able to develop and provide some of these services, support. One specific activity undertaken by the county is the encouragement of local economic development. And these are specific things to bridge the gap. Very, very important.
I'll put 3 issues quickly together. Point 7 talks about robust pension schemes. Now, we've had the situation with the ILO saying that SNITs, if we are not careful, by 2036, wahala day. Affordable and diversified energy supply to meet industrial and domestic needs. We have DUMSO to deal with. And, I'm sorry, it's DUMCSE, according to NAPO. DUMCSE, my apologies, DUMCSE. Then, effective, efficient, dynamic, and inclusive institutions that ensure accountability, integrity, and transparency with negligible levels of corruption. Yet, you see the tussle between IOCO and the OSP and the AG. Our institutions can't even work together. 3 issues that are playing out now. Your thoughts?
Yes, let me look at the robust pension scheme. I think that, well, it's an ILO research, so
we've seen the responses.
Yeah,
from
that
SNIT,
is
yes,
it.
But,
that is it. SNIT is bringing out the facts of the situation, but it doesn't mean that we haven't looked at that. The other thing is that where we're concerned in the plan is the informal sector.
Right.
So this is where we've been able to push into the targeting farmers, targeting traders, and bringing them on, and people are doing it. The last count indicated that at least there's a capture of 20% of the informal sector now going into, pension.
Wow, that's huge. That's great.
Yes, and that is very, very huge.
Because that is where the biggest gap is.
Yes, and especially those that they are doing for cocoa farmers specifically and other producers of these cash crops is good. Affordable energy. I am so charged
when they talk of industrial and domestic.
Yes,
and industries are bleeding.
Yeah, you see. It's a whole process and a transition. Usually, energy build-up is started at a time and then you gain it. We have an energy transition plan, which is gradually shifting about 20% of our energy potential to renewable, for which we can do, and we've already started. That is very, very crucial. The other thing about it is also the gadgets that we use. We have closed our eyes on that. All the fridge junks, the TV junks, and all these things have been giving a problem. Energy Commission is now up to the beat. And yesterday somebody called me, he's brought 20 fridges into the country and they've seized it at the harbor. I said, yeah, definitely, you need to find a way even to pay for how it can be disposed. Yeah. It's done in other countries. So these
the CFCs
are things, and all that. So these are problems that we have. Any gadget which passes through this country should have a certain amount of energy consumption being approved by the Energy Commission. And they are checking on that. It's now becoming a problem and a real negotiation point between our Energy Commission and GUTA. And we have sat in some of these discussions. So, but we need citizens to back.
But beyond that, we also have our power challenges. I want us to address that briefly and also address the effective, efficient, dynamic, and inclusive institutions that will stand against, will provide integrity, accountability, and fight corruption.
Power build-up is being...
And that's how...
There are 64 opportunities for hydroelectricity in this country. And just a few of them have been developed. We are working on that. I mean, the other one is solar, BUI has been done, and then the other one in Volta Red in terms of hydro. All these are things that we are exploring, but it takes time for it to catch up.
Institutions, that's the final point. Final point.
National Development Planning Commission is supposed to coordinate policy, institutions, capacity, implementation, and all that. And it's one of the things we look at it keenly. We have had a situation where we are screening all the national policies in the past, and then currently we are looking at all these regulations. And to be frank, if you want institutional harmony, you need to look at, first of all, their mandates, responsibility, functions. And unfortunately for us, as a country, many of them are conflicting.
Are conflicting?
Yes, many of them. Okay. And therefore, it's something that we are working on. We've gone all the way to we've come out with what we call the policy almanac to look at all the policy in history and current. And the cabinet is giving us, cabinet secretariat is giving us a lot of support. AG is giving us a lot of support to be able to push through that. And I'm very sure that by next year, a lot of these harmonies will be able to establish, because that is the point. Okay. The gray areas where institutions are conflicting, we need to look at that.
Thank you so much, Doc, for having joined the conversation this morning. It's been really good having you here with us, Dr. Abrampa. And what can we do? We wish you the very best as you go about your duties.
Thank you.
In some 30 seconds, maybe, do you have any final?
Yes, what I would like to bring about is that we're going through what we call a review of the long-term plan. We have done a lot of consultations already. It's already getting into Parliament and also with the professional institutions. And I want Ghanaians to engage. This is very simple. Every 4-year segment, what do we have as a country to achieve and attain? What do we hold our leaders accountable for? And how do we measure this progress? Very simple. It's redefining and reviewing this process to make it very simple for us. Once the approval is done and every process is done, we'll put it on our website for all of us to engage. We'll also go out to disseminate and share with many people as much as possible so that we can all hold our governments accountable, ask questions, be part of the process, and be part of the measuring. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and once more, our condolences to you. Wish you the very best. That is Dr. Kojo Essiem Mensah Abrampa. He's Director General, National Development Planning Commission, and he's been speaking to us on Ghana's developmental agenda. When we come back after the break, we're going to be telling you about the Apex Court, the Attorney General's push for some specific issues of national interest to be televised on a regular basis, to be put out there for the public to know what is in there or what the thinking of our courts are. We'll bring you details of that when we return from the break. Do stay.